The first half of our lives, we strive to define ourselves, build careers, improve our worth. Now, the second half is when the ego eases up and the heart takes over and searches for fulfillment. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because I'm not convinced we have to wait until the second half of our lives to find fulfillment. Could hear my guest laughing. And my guest is here to tell us how to design a life that's profoundly rewarding. Are you interested? Because I know I am.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Adria Firestone, is a speaker, certified rapids result coach, and the best-selling author of You Are the Artist of Your Life. She's a leading consultant for presentation skills and an innovator in personal and professional development. She has decades of international opera and music theater award-winning performance and media experience with stage credits ranging from Carmen in, I hope I get this right, Bizet's opera to Family Guy. She'll fix that up. She's been published in the Wall Street Journal, the Huffington Post, Women's Day, and was featured on a collection of news outlets. That is some bio. Glad to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Adria.
Rob, I'm so happy to be here. And I hear my intro and I say, who is that woman? My goodness, she sounds interesting.
Yeah, I got to meet that lady. That happens to me sometimes when I'm giving a keynote or something, and they read the whole thing, and I go, well, you either hate me or like me, but that guy, almost all of that was right on the number. Help me out with that opera name. Did I get it right?
It's Georges Bizet. Bizet. Because it's French, you don't pronounce the T.
Okay, good. Thank you. So in other words, I wasn't even in the ballpark of that one. But we'll work on it today. All right, so let's get to work with you. You at the tender age of 10, instead of running away to the circus, you ran to the opera and the music theater. But then at some years later, let's say maybe 50, you walked away off stage, start another life. So let's start there. What made you leave the stage?
Burnout. I had such a passion, Rob, for performance. Now, I didn't realize until much later that I was running away to the circus. Mm-hmm. I was running away from what I had gone through in my early life, which to me was normal because I didn't know any different, did I? Right. So what happened is I got to a point at 50 years old that I said to myself, if I see one more hotel, 5-star or not, one more airport, one more theater, I just have no reserves left. I have nothing more to give. And what happened is the joy, the immense joy that I had in performance had just slipped away. And all of a sudden, I found myself with not knowing what I was still doing there. I was relying on technique and years of experience, but when the passion in the center of it all that fires up everything, when that wasn't there anymore, it ceased to be a joy for me. And if it isn't a joy for me, any audience, and I promise you, any audience will always know whether you are 100% passionately committed and there or you're not. They will always know that. And I said, this is not fair to them or to me. I need to change.
Well, first of all, congratulations, because as a person who spent 41 years on a stage, I respect and honor somebody who realizes that that's a door they're going to have to walk through. I believe that one of the greatest gifts we have is an audience, and we treasure that audience, and we cherish that audience, and we cherish them so much that we pull ourselves away from it. And I know that must have been an extremely difficult decision for you.
It was very, very hard. And Rob, when I walked off stage, I literally found myself in this vacuum. And I said to myself, well, who am I now? All of a sudden, this very convenient label was gone. And I said, and what am I still doing here? Yeah. Is there any purpose? Why am I still here? Because I thought my entire mission was all about singing, was all about communicating as an actor, as a singer, and being a colleague. And I loved it. But yes, all of a sudden the definition was gone. And I had to start searching.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm not there yet. But I'm not, People look at what we do when you're on stage and they dream and they say, "Oh, to have that life,"
And
but
they think it's so glamorous.
Right? They don't see the delayed airplanes, the canceled flights, the sitting in hotel rooms, the battling weather, the battling illness,
And loneliness.
yeah,
And you just keep going anyway because you promised an audience that you're going to be there.
right. I had this. Sounds almost trite, but I had this epiphany one time when I was trying to get at how to get people to believe us. I think that's a missing piece. We learn the words sometimes, but we don't know the tune. And my trite little epiphany was the greatest way to be believed is you have to believe you.
Oh,
it always starts there.
100%. If it isn't inside of you and you are not committed to what you're doing because you can't wait to share it, then you have to change. You have to open your eyes and say, this isn't working anymore. That's where artistic integrity comes in.
There you go.
Or an educator's integrity.
Yeah. And that's why I respect the decision that you made so much, because sometimes, the gigs are still lining up. We can still go and probably muscle our way through it and fool most of an audience, but we're not fooling ourselves. Right.
Yep.
So, and that's where side hustles come in. Just so you know, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to step away from the circus. Not yet, everybody, but that's why little side hustles begin to create as we begin to explore. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit more about, because you're the author. You're the one who got there. But help me with this one last thing, because there is this line in the sand. It's something that I write about a lot of things, but I don't talk about Jollis books, but I write. And the line in the sand, and when you study the way people make decisions, is the first decision is not to whine, not complain, but have you made a decision for change? Because we all fear change. So, and sometimes that's a moment, and sometimes that's a straw that breaks the camel's back. But that's what I'm curious to hear from you. Was there a moment? Was there an element where you just said, this is the time?
It's mystical. All right. You ready for mystical?
I'm ready for it.
All right. I'm in Cordoba. I'm backstage. I'm doing my yoga because Carmen doesn't come on stage until like 20 minutes later. So my leg is up on a stage ladder. I'm doing my yoga. I'm stretching, and I hear a voice. Okay, don't freak out. But I hear this voice. The voice says, "This is the last Carmen you will ever do." And I'm looking around. There's nobody around me. Oh. And I'm going, the last Carmen I will ever do. And I was panic-stricken, Rob, because I knew that it was the truth. You know, when you know inside of you that no matter how you don't want to believe this, it is the truth. And sure enough, I said to myself, am I going to cry through the whole performance? What am I going to do? And I went, hey, take both hands, get over yourself. You're a pro, get out there and do your job. So I did my job. 24 months later, I had wrapped up all the existing contracts I had. I wasn't accepting anymore. And without a word to anybody, Rob, I walked off stage. I just left.
Wow.
Scary.
It is scary. You know, I'm gonna take you to a quick story, but it always amazes me. I grew up, believe it or not, as a Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin fan, very big fan of Jerry Lewis.
Hey.
And if you read about them, they had their moment and they had their time. And when they finished, one walked to the left off stage and one walked to the right. And that was it. Unbeknownst to sort of a misconception is that there was a lot of anger and bitterness. There really wasn't. They were very good friends, spoke to each other for decades afterwards, every day. So that was just sort of the press got it wrong. But the fact is, they took that walk to different sides of the stage, and that always stayed with me in terms of and you know, something else you did that's really helpful in sales. We have a sales audience listening, a business audience listening.
Yes.
A lot of times when we work with customers, they're struggling, but they haven't heard the voice that you heard, but they're struggling. And it's one of the reasons why, for me, I take it very personally when salespeople are attacked, because of course there's good ones and bad ones. There's good doctors, bad doctors,
of course.
bad lawyers. But the great ones are the ones that are able to earn the right to have a conversation, to help people manage that fear of change. Because sometimes it's a voice in our head Sometimes it's something a lot more sinister, a lot worse. You were blessed in a sense to have had that moment.
I think so.
Yeah.
Extreme clarity, and to actually accept it. Because I
Yeah.
think we humans, we're like cats.
Yeah.
We say, why did you move my feed bowl 2 inches to the left? I liked it exactly where it was. Well, but because we don't like change, because this is the devil we know. So I'd rather the feed bowl stay where it is. And I'd rather keep promulgating this character that I'm doing. Well, it was time for me to say, I'm not really a showgirl, because I've never really been one. I'm just really good at what I do. But I think there's something bigger that I'm supposed to do. And I had no idea at the time what it was. I just dumped into a million different businesses like a crazy person, trying to find out, who am I? Yeah. Who am I and what am I doing here?
Yeah, but maybe not so crazy. I think that's probably because you didn't have a consultant, in a sense, sitting on your hip. You had to manage this alone.
Yes.
And the beauty of a consultant, the beauty of a mentor, the beauty of somebody who you trust is that they are the ones asking you questions you can't hear in your head. You don't know to ask yourself.
Exactly.
And when we're at it alone, and in the stage business, and I have almost 3 million miles in the air as a road warrior. When you're at it alone, the only voice you're hearing is yours.
Absolutely. And you become, when you were talking on one of your interviews on sales, that you need to listen to the problems, focus on the problems of the people you're serving.
Right.
Well, there was no one to focus on my problems except me, and I was climbing the mountain, and I didn't know how far I was from the top, or even what mountain I was on. So it is a matter of, I decided to become a coach. So I went to school to be a coach, and I realized one thing, that it was going to help me understand myself better. And then to discover the world of coaching and have a coach and have a mentor, all of a sudden it changed my life. It changed my life because I had someone who was asking me questions. Well, Adria, why do you feel that way?
Right.
So it was illuminating. It was illuminating. It didn't only help me understand myself, but it helped make me better equipped to serve the people who need my energy and my experience now.
Yeah. And you hit on something I really like also, which is beautiful. We are taught, to keep climbing. In 3rd, 4th grade, if a rung of a ladder presents itself, grab that ladder, keep going. Where are we taught when to stop climbing, when to release, when to look up and go, no, that's not the move for me? Our instinct is to keep going up.
Yes.
And so it's a very difficult thing that you did, particularly alone, to have the wherewithal to let go. And that's why you not only did a wonderful thing for every audience, but you did a wonderful thing for yourself. Okay, let's talk about some fulfillment. I started by saying, and you helped me with this, I started by kind of looking at, as you diagrammed it, sort of that first half of our life, I guess we're climbing. And then the second half, if we're lucky enough, we start looking around a little bit more and say, well, maybe this is high enough. Maybe I'll take a step back a little bit. But I'm looking for some secret sauce here. So how do we get more fulfillment out of the first half? I guess is what I'm asking. What if we're still climbing? What if we haven't made that change? Is there a way to not have to wait to our later years to do things that are more fulfilling?
Yeah, we'll change our educational system. Excuse me, but that's what I passionately feel that I've been.
Can you do that in 60 seconds? Because I'd like you to finish that thought.
Oh boy!
She's popping out of her chair right now, ladies and gentlemen. All right, go ahead. 60 seconds, though. Let me hear it.
60 seconds. All right. I have been an educator at a university for 2 decades already. And what shocks me, and I'm so amazed by, is that the things that are really, really crucial to a student, to be able to not just walk out with debt on their back or with a diploma, but to be able to say, hello, my name is John. Let me tell you why you need to hire me, because I do this and this and this, and I can serve you in this way. Nobody bothers teaching them that. And it isn't the art of public speaking. No, it's the art of self-confidence. It's the art of knowing who you are, of getting clarity on who you are in the first place and who you are at this moment, not 5 minutes from now, beta now, better later. Yes, that's the truth. Be exactly where you are. And acceptance, to me, is the first powerful of a trinity that I have in my programs, that you need to know where you are and who you are. And then you start from a place of authenticity instead of trying to fake it till you make it. I mean, that's okay if you're singing a song and you've never sung it before. But in life, ground yourself in who you are authentically. And instead of trying to compare yourselves, especially to social media, and think, well, I'm inferior and I'm superior, there will always be someone better than you and always someone worse than you. Always. The only refuge you have and the only comparison you have is, who are you and what are you doing here? So we're not taught that in school. We're not taught that that is the value of who we are. Right. We're taught instead it is the thing you do, the talent you have, the gift that you have. No, the gift is, who are you? Who are you and what are you doing here?
Okay, well, you just get a bonus couple minutes on that one. Wow, that's not only beautiful, but you have a fan. So now I'm jumping out of my chair, because I also believe that the school systems I refer to as soft skills, which I've always felt is an incredibly demeaning term. I work with people who are in career transition. In a period of time, I went about 10 years in front of an audience every Tuesday night when I was in town. And I'm talking 250, 300. And it's people in career transition. And Adria, of that 300, 290 of them were there, not because their hard skills failed them, because their soft skills failed them. They were never taught soft skills, and they never taught how to disagree, how to become. The magic word you used was authentic. How to become authentic. That's easy for some, but not for a lot of people. And it changes the trajectory of one's life. Haven't learned it.
Amen. Absolutely, it changes everything.
Yes.
Because I know I was hiding in the spotlight, Rob.
Yeah.
I could go through all of the anger and the pain and everything that I had gone through in my life. I could scream on stage. I got awards for it, as long as I screamed on pitch and as long as I followed the conductor. And I wore 1,000,000 beautiful masks. Well, now, as a speaker, as an educator, when all the masks are off, that is the measure of, do I have the guts to share what I really know and share it honestly, instead of masking it and trying to make it more beautiful? No, that's how we learn, is by revealing our hearts and revealing what we've truly gone through. And it isn't most of the time glamorous at all.
Right. So one way you and I are going to go on a campaign across this country.
And we'll do part 2 and part 3, and we'll be on stage together, and we would have a riot.
Oh, yeah. And I can sing too, but that's another story for you. I met my wife in a musical, just so you know, some years ago. So I've got a little theater in my background, not like you, but I'm a junior you. Point being, we're agreeing on one thing, that when we feel authenticity, and as I say, that's the tune behind the words. We know it, and when we don't feel it from others, we don't believe them. And when you're not believable in life, whether you're in front of that audience on a stage, in front of that customer in a boardroom, where in front of a loved one that you're trying to help, when you're not believed, it's devastating. And it's difficult. Good news is, I think it can be taught.
It can.
Yeah.
It can. That's one of the things, along with the wise wild woman, that I love the truth of this statement, that charisma is not a gift from the gods to a select few. Charisma is a skill set. It can be taught. And part of it is being an excellent listener. And that's listening with your entire body, with your ears, with your eyes, with all of you, with all of your attention. And what you're doing is holding a container for another human being and saying, I'm listening to you. and it changes everything. So not only do you become better at expression, but you become better at sharing and better at absorbing, and then genuinely interacting with another human being. Not I'm listening to you because I want to sell you something, but I'm listening to you because I care about what you went through in your life. And that's a different thing. It's a very different level, isn't it, Rob? It's how you are. I saw you on stage. It's how you are.
Right, right. Well, I'm tossing out some of my questions because I still want to stay here.
Okay.
You are the artist of your life. That's your book.
Yeah.
Am I going to learn some of this in your book, what we're talking about right now?
Yes, because I've done it in a certain way. I rewrote the darn thing 5 different times because I kept simplifying it. One side, each chapter is only 1 page long. The other page, the facing page, is a journal page. And there are prompts that ask you about whatever the topic is. For example, one of the chapters is, you are the knight on the white horse you've been waiting for. Is that we are responsible to make the change in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's how unwilling we are to ask for what we really want. Instead, we find ourselves asking for what we think we can get. And we never really say, what I really want is this, because I'm afraid it'll never happen. So I better just not say anything and be quiet. Oh, how terrible. Yeah. And the educational system teaches us to be that way. Fold your hands, lower your eyes, and just be compliant. Yeah. Well, I say, absolutely not.
I'm hearing that. Alongside with that, I wrote a piece recently where I'm a fairly superstitious person, but I realized that, we can have our superstitions, but when they cross into sometimes almost we feel like we're jinxing ourselves when we speak positively. In other words, maybe I'm going to try out not for a show, or maybe I'm working with a client and somebody says, I know you got your proposal. How's that going? Well, I don't want to jinx myself. I don't want to talk about it. You know what? I want to talk about it. I want to, I wish we could reverse that thinking that says, don't be afraid to hope. Hope is, exactly. I heard a line once, I think you'll love this. I read it in a sports column and I went, what? Oh, I'm not a sports fan, but this is so brilliant. What a waste to be hidden here. And and what he wrote was this. He said, there's a penalty for hope. It's okay. The penalty for hope is disappointment.
Ooh, I'm writing this down.
Can you imagine? I'm reading about the Wizards or something. I'm going, oh my goodness, because it's true. And once we out that and we say, but what's the alternative? To not hope? No, I'm going to hope. I'm going to let people know that I'm all in on this. It's going to encourage me. And if I don't get it, I'll dust myself off. I'll get back up. And as Lee Jollis, my dad, used to say, I'll put one foot in front of the other and keep walking.
And Rob, isn't that what it's about? It's don't love. Right. Because if you love and you actually admit to someone that you love them, they might not love you back. Yeah, that's right. But if you never ask for what you want and you never hope, I promise you, you will never get it.
Right.
So let's lose the fear of failure and fail fast. Oh, I've failed so many times. I fell on my butt. And Pop, my dear father-in-law, he was from North Carolina. He used to say to me, baby girl, every time you think you got it figured out, well, I'm here to tell you life's going to come and whoop you upside the head.
I was just in South Carolina. That sounds about right. Yeah. That's hysterical. But Adria, it's a really good point we're making, because even when we go in, and you mentioned relationships.
Yes.
Even when we go in and we're really wanting something, if we go in there hedging our bets, going, don't get your hopes up, don't get your hopes up.
Exactly.
It's going to transfer into our body language, our tone, our pitch, our pace, where we pause. We're going to lose that authenticity. So what I think we're both trying to say right now is take it in there.
Yes.
Guns are blaring, right?
Because if I never revealed to you, I used to whine and moan about my relationships. Oh, why Did I ever really reveal who I was? Or was I just trying to be a people pleaser because I was trained? We're domesticated by society to do that. So I'm trying to say yes to everything. Well, you never really know who I am. So are we having a relationship for real? Or are you having a relationship with my image and not with my essence?
Yeah. Hmm.
And Lord, that's a crime, because the other person never gets to know who you really are, because you're not risking. You're not risking the hope, the love, or being authentically you because someone might not like it. Yeah, the news is there will be plenty of people who won't like it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And that's just a fact. It's a fact of life.
Right. And you coach people, right?
Yes, I do. Yes,
I bet you do. And I will tell you that, boy, it's not like you're listening to a guest here who read this in a book somewhere. You spend decades and decades on stage. And I know for me, at least, I don't suffer from imposter syndrome. I feel pretty confident up there, but I also know I'm as good as the last performance on that stage. And when I forget that, then I'm going to be flat. So I want to be anxious. I want to have a little buzz in my belly. Yes. But to have decades and decades, I'd want somebody like that coaching me on how to get there. Not somebody who read it, but somebody who lived it.
Yes. Yes, it's very different. And also what's interesting, when I went to university to teach this to my students, they're the ones, Rob, who made me a teacher, because I realized I was speaking the language of a master who has been doing this for 40 years. And they're looking at me like, huh? What are you talking about? And I found not one, not two, not 10 ways to describe what I was talking about. And when you see the light go on in someone's eyes, then you know you're becoming a teacher. Then you know you have something to share. So yes, I had all this incredible 40 years of training in communication, in human emotion and communication. Yes, but it's quite another thing when then you decide to share that with the world, and then you have students who are kind and gracious enough to teach you how to do it. Because boy, oh boy, they've taught me to become a teacher.
Right. And see, there's the difference between performance. And again, I'm just a junior, you barely, but I learned my lines. Then I learned how to deliver my lines, and I learned how to deliver them so they were coming out of the, but I wasn't thinking of anything new. But the moment you get in front of an audience and you're going to give a keynote or a workshop, it's one big improv. I mean, I got a direction I'm going. I've got some bullets I'm going to try and follow.
I got some bullets on my little index card, you bet.
Right. But the reason why those students taught you so much, just like my audiences teach me, is the greatest gift we can give an audience as a presenter is to, and you use this word, is to simplify what it is you've learned. That's what age does. And I don't mean age in terms of us getting old, but the ability to do and keep doing it and finding different ways to connect and link and see that light go off in that student's eyes and say, now I know how to say it. Now I got it.
And see an audience get it. And you see their heads nodding and you know, oh boy, yes, I'm really communicating. And isn't that exhilarating? Rob, it's so exhilarating.
Right. That's why you'll watch many good presenters who have been presenting for decades with a little pad or something on that lectern, because we never know when a few words are going to get strung together and you see this light go off. And believe me, we see it. We see that light and go, it's like a dream. I'm not going to convince myself I'm going to remember this in the morning. I'm writing it down.
Or we can go off on a tangent and speak for another hour on that one thing that got us excited. And that's not fair to the audience, because if they give you 45 minutes to present, it better not be 47. It needs to be 45.
Oh, we're again on the same page. And I'm a timing, almost OCD-ish about that.
I am too.
Client paid for 45. If you go 40, some clients will look at you and go, that's what happened to the other 5. And if you go 50, you're interfering with the meeting planner, you're interfering with the next speaker. It can be considered rude. So we don't speed up in the last 3 minutes. I've always given a visualization of like a hot air balloon. We're watching it. We're giving it some heat. Oh, I'm running about a minute fast. Now we're letting some heat out of that balloon, right? And it never goes in a straight line. It goes a little like this.
I just want to know, when are we speaking together? I want to do this.
Hey, I want to drop back just to one thing.
Yes, yes.
Although I got to tell you, I could live here for the next 3 hours. Just one thing, though, because sometimes when I open and I talk about something, I want to deliver. I did some reading on you. I think I know the answer to this, but I would like to hear it from you, and then I'll nudge it maybe if I don't get the question right. Fulfillment, this fulfillment piece. Yeah, I'm exactly what you talk about. First half of the life, I was just kind of nose down, grinding it out. I was raised by a Marine. That's it. There's the ladder. Keep reaching for rungs, regardless of the consequences. And then we wake up one day and we go, you know what? I want to look around a little bit. I want to find something I want to do what I do, but be more fulfilled. Why do we have to wait to the second half of our lives for that? Is there a way to get going a little bit earlier? There's some moves that you'd suggest.
I think part of the way to get there a little bit earlier, I think that when we hit midlife, that some of the ego drops away, which allows that fulfillment to that quest for it to rise, and that you actually permit yourself to pay attention to that. You mean I could be happy and fulfilled and profoundly fulfilled? Ooh, so that's an exciting thing. But to get there a little sooner is, I'm going to go back to the first thing, is acceptance. And it is knowing who you are, is taking the time to know yourself, and to know yourself in a way, not in the label of the job you're doing. You may be doing a job and you may be perfectly wonderful at it, but that doesn't mean that that is the essence of who you are. It is taking the time to know yourself. And as you know yourself more and you start accepting who you truly are, then what happens is the fierceness of competition, instead of competing with those around you, you switch from, let me show you, like when we were little kids and we did show and tell in school. And so instead of show and tell, you start becoming in competition with only one person, and that person is you. Right. I'm in competition with myself. If I can be better than I was 5 minutes ago, then I'm making progress. So when that happens, you become more inner directed. Right. And inner directedness is the key for you to edge toward that fulfillment. Okay. And then to have the courage to be able to ask, not for what you think you can get, but to have the courage to be able to ask for what you really want. Are you always going to get it? Of course not. Of course not. But as I said before, if you don't ask, I can promise you, you'll never get it. And then finally is to take action on what you've learned about yourself, on that inner directedness. Start listening to your intuition. What is your heart asking you for? What is your soul murmuring at 2:00 in the morning? What is it that is calling you to something else? And just because, for example, you're a fabulous pianist, you play the piano fabulously, does that mean you have to have a career as a pianist? No. What does your heart want? And we're not trained to pay attention to something as, secondary soft skills, like you said, Rob. No, that is the essence of who you are. Start paying attention to who you truly are. Line up with your connection. And if you want to be really dramatic, line up with the divine spark that you already are. When we pay attention to that, my mission is to hold up a mirror and say to everyone I meet, do you see how magnificent you are? And do you realize how much power you have with every choice you make? That is extraordinary. When you know who you are and you know what you're doing here. Did I know that when I was 20 years old? No, I thought my purpose in life was to sing.
Right.
So it is a process. It isn't a pill. If not, I'd be a billionaireess. Right. Take 2 of these, call me in the morning, and you'll be just fine. You'll know who you are, and it'll all be done.
Yeah. I think there's one other piece that you writing about. Maybe I thought this up myself, but I'm going to give you a story and then tell me if I don't limp into one of your areas.
Okay.
You know, we have to keep our eyes open for authors like you and me. People always ask, you know, when did you decide to write the book? And we usually go, oh, I didn't decide. That book found me. Okay.
Ooh.
So a lot of times in terms of fulfillment, we have to keep our eyes open. So I'm going to give you a story and a half. One, I got asked one time by a group. They said, well, you're a speaker. We're going to do an auction. Can you do an auction? I went, sure, I guess. I really didn't do a very good job, but I went for 80 hours of instruction. I became a licensed live auctioneer about 14 years ago.
Wow.
And I found some fulfillment in giving back to others. Okay. In
Yes.
trying to take the skills that I had. Okay. I'm comfortable on a stage and I can
Right.
persuade. And
Right.
now I'm going to, I don't do houses. I don't do cattle. I don't do cars. I do charities. And I
Ooh.
want to help them. And I feel there's some fulfillment right there. I wandered into a stage maybe 15 years ago, a wonderful group called Career Network Ministry in McLean, Virginia, for job seekers. I was just giving a presentation. I never left. I've been going. I went for the next decade because I said, here's a way of using my skill set, not really making money on this. I'm going to take the really out, not making money on this,
Right.
but giving back. So am I close to where you are in terms of part of that fulfillment might be finding things like this, things to give back to others and drawing fulfillment from it?
The key to it, Rob, you just hit the nail on the head. You're absolutely correct. Because when I first went, I'll give you a return small story. When I first went to Milano to find my voice and to learn more about the cradle of opera, you know, what was I doing in this world? So let me learn more about the world. So I go to Milano. And I was living in a convent, which was really, really funny because I'm not even Catholic. And so I'm living with all these nuns. And I was so lonely and felt so isolated. I didn't speak the language at that point when I first got there. I'd studied it in school and I thought I knew how to speak Italian. Oh, baloney. It wasn't until 3 months later when I told a joke at a dinner party and everybody laughed. Then I knew how to speak Italian. But the only thing that saved me from this sadness and this loneliness was go to one of the sisters and say, Suora, how can I help you? What do you need? I don't care what it is. Let me help you. Within 5 minutes of helping whatever I was doing, I felt better immediately. And that stuck with me, that I realized when I start this spiral of self-doubt, who am I? What am I doing here? I don't know nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I've got to eat a worm. When I sing in that little song to myself, my situation is, Adria, get out there and do something for someone else. The minute that word service, to me, that is an exemplary, it is what leads us forward, especially in the second half of life. And if we can get into it sooner, then yes, we're already on the right track, because you will discover the joy. And it was Don Miguel Ruiz, I think it's Freedom from Fear. I'm not remembering exactly which book it was, but it was talking about the love that comes from you is so much more valuable than the love that comes to you.
Wow.
And to me, when I talk about service, when I feel myself in service, to me, that's love. That is love in action. And that is the strongest power on this earth. It is what unites us. None of the stuff that we have in our life matters, because that's going to vanish. But when we touch each other in that kind of service that is love made manifest, well, that's what it's all about. That changes souls. That touching never goes away. It never goes away. So you're absolutely correct. You forgive me for not even emphasizing that, but yes, that's what it's all about. It is about service.
Right. You know who I learned that from?
No.
You. I studied you. I looked you up. I started listening to you, and I said, that's such a beautiful thing. That's why I was trying to kind of hand it off. And you went, well, now which? And I said, I think you're going to remember when I give you what I'm hearing. But yes, you taught me that, Audrey, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
Oh, Rob, thank you.
let's bring ourselves in for a landing a little bit. How about a mentor or two?
A mentor or two. I think my first mentor was my voice teacher at the University of Miami. Her name was Lena Mataford. And I was in a very, very difficult parental situation. And she was a refuge, and she saw me for who I was. Not only did she value the fact that I sang and that I was so committed to my work, but she loved me for who I was. And that was precious. And there was another woman, Lee Olson. Lee Olson, I won her scholarship in Palm Beach, and we became fast friends. I mean, literally, I'd finish a rehearsal and we would have been rehearsing for 8 hours and my eyes were crossed, and she would come to me, I brought some jeans in the car, get changed, we're going to pick strawberries. So there are people and coaches that have changed my life and have been there for me in the most wonderful way. And being able to pass that on, Rob, is exciting to me, for me to be a mentor to someone, for me to hold that container of unconditional love, tempered with very direct honesty, because I am honest about what I see. I do so in a loving and kind manner, but I don't sugarcoat things, because I'm not doing my client a service by doing that. I have to make sure that I tell them what I see. That doesn't mean I'm always right. But it's honesty from the inside of me. That has to do with integrity.
Right. I as a guy who gives a great deal of feedback, I think it takes courage. It takes courage as a parent as well. But what we try and do is balance our feedback. In other words, if I'm going to give you two thoughts things maybe we could have done differently,
yes,
I'm always going to begin with two things that I really loved. And believe me, I can find 5 on both sides of that aisle. But when we balance it and we stay consistent, it's an act of compassion, and it's not aggressive. I wish more people, speaking of soft skills, wish more people would learn how to give feedback.
Yes,
indeed. It can be brutal for some people.
And know how powerful kindness and compassion is. To me, compassion equals love. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great way to bring us in. You are the artist of your life. If you've been listening to this podcast and you're not going to go out to Amazon and get that book and not only read it, but put a review on it for Adria, then you're a knucklehead. And you have no knuckleheads. You know the rules on this. But what a wonderful interview. And I want to tell you, before we pressed record, we were talking 2 minutes, and we both sort of, I think, had a sense of, oh boy, we got two, not one, but 2 energy balls coming at everybody. Get ready. And you did not disappoint. I am really grateful to have had you on. How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, well, you can find me, of course, on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website, which is adriafirestone.com, ADRIA, adriafirestone.com/welcome. And you can get yourself a free report on the wise wild woman's path to rapid change, because I don't want you hanging around for a million years wondering how to change. No, you can change. There's some very good pointers in there. And I would love for you to connect with me. I would love it.
Perfect. Well, she spelled her name. We're also going to have that on our site as well.
Thank you.
Truly, I've done 3.5 years of these. This has been one of my favorites. You are a joy, tremendous amount of energy, which really appeals to me. So thank you for being on the show. And really, what a tremendous job. Really, I'm grateful.
Thank you, Rob. I look forward to part 2 and maybe part 10. Who knows, right?
Who knows? Actually, as you say that, in 3 years and 300 podcasts, I've only had one guest on twice. You're in the running to be my second one. We'll give this wine some time to breathe. But I think we were scratching the surface. And as I told you about halfway through, I scrapped most of my questions, and I just wanted to stay where we were. So that's a testament to you.
Anyway, feels wonderful.
Thank you. We'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.